Hello, everybody. So, I wanted to make a video today. Something that, if you think about it, everybody's fascinated with, and that's like bad or evil. If you think about it, it's always been tales and stories going back to, biblical times and even before, is always this good versus evil. Now, it fascinates everybody if you think about like popular culture and all movies, TV shows. It's all the same. If you look, it's pretty much in a common theme is good versus evil. If you look at all the popular tales, and there'll always be a villain and a hero, and obviously we go through similar struggles in our lives, and that's why we relate to these stories. Anybody that knows me will know that I'm a big Star Wars fan. So obviously, if you take that as an example, good versus evil, the rebellion versus the empire. It's the same tales told time and time again. So I, from a personal point of view, have always been interested in criminality and psychopaths. I read a lot of books about serial killers, and there's loads of information out there these days, isn't there, about if you've got access to like Netflix and things like that, the amount of documentaries that you can watch is unbelievable. Excuse me. So really, what is it that is you see, if you look at the Bible, it was like the devil. You had the devil and you had God. And it's pretty much, that's how religion is sort of teaches you to sort of conceptualize good versus evil is like a supreme powerful being versus of good versus a supreme powerful being of bad, the devil, God, and that kind of thing. But really, what is it when it comes down to it? Excuse me. What is good and bad? And I think we're at a kind of a crossroads as a species at the moment, where we're starting to become wiser in some cases. And the line of good and bad isn't as clear as what it used to be. Because if you think about your own personal life and your experiences through work and your own personal relationships and that, you might see your ex-husband or ex-wife or ex-girlfriend as someone who you think is evil because of what they have done. And of course that might be a natural reaction when you're hurt, but some people carry that burden with them all their life. And of course, from that other person's perspective, the other person might be evil the way a relationship ended, by driving them to it. So who's right and who's wrong? If you look at it from like a global perspective, you might see the people in power. I don't want to mention any names, but if you think about certain political world leaders that seem to be acting without any logic whatsoever, but of course from their eyes, they will believe that they're doing the right thing. But what is the right thing? What is good? What is bad? If you think about it from like the animal kingdom, there is no good and bad. We as humans have created good and bad. It's thinking. Nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so. I think actually Shakespeare said that. Of course, there are horrors in this world that you can't, from the level that we're at now, you couldn't say that they are not bad. Like, the torture, and I don't want to go into this too much because that's not what I want to do here, but if you look at the torture and oppression of children and women throughout the ages, the way that women have been sort of treated for thousands of years, it's terrible. And of course, on a smaller scale, if you look at child abuse, how could you possibly say that was good? Of course you can't. But from a universal perspective, from the perspective of the absolute the realm of where her home is, heaven if you want to call it that, or whatever. It's just a word, but where her true home is, not here. There is no good or bad. There is just what is. There has to be a good and a bad, because we exist now on the physical plane that can't exist without polarities. There is hot and cold, there is up and down, there is over there and over here, and there is good and bad. There is light and there is darkness. It's part of what we have to experience in this world that we're in. It couldn't be otherwise. And it's difficult when you see tragedies happen, whether it be natural disasters or it be human created disasters, like the atrocities that you see all over the world, and murders and things like that. People would then start to doubt that there is a higher power, and understandably so. If you're involved in such a thing, it seems to defy all logic. But most of it is human created. We've been given the gift of free will, and it couldn't be any other way. We have to go through what we've been through, and sometimes on the level of form of where we're at now, there's terrible things that occur. But I think it's the Course in Miracles that says, nothing unreal exists, nothing real can be threatened, herein lies the peace of God. And what that means is that you at your deepest level, if you want to call it your soul or whatever, that cannot be touched or destroyed or anything, no matter what you go through. And really, I don't know why this has happened to me, but just a sort of brief explanation about, the sort of world that I live in now and how I see things sometimes. Through my professional work, I see, as a sort of professional, I see all kinds of situations involving, from a medical aspect and psychological, all this kind of stuff. But when I see what might be described as being drama, or even things that are good or bad, I get like a sense that it isn't real. Now, of course, I'm not that naive to think that something terrible could happen to me and that might change. But I just try and trust in life. But for instance, when I see like a fight or people battling or whatever, I just get a sense coming over me that this isn't real, that it's like an illusion. And when you understand how certain people live their lives and what they think is real, I think that's why I don't really understand what happens, but when I see these things, it's like it isn't real, like I'm seeing something that doesn't exist. And all the teachings that I read point to that fact. The very true teachings of the Buddha say that that this just isn't a real universe that we're in. The realm that we live in heaven, if you want to call it that, is the real one. This isn't. This is like an illusion. It's like a game that we're playing. And every now and again, I really get that sense, and it's a real genuine feeling that comes over me. I still have ridiculous challenges that I have to face in this world, like we all do. And that's one of the reasons I like doing these videos. If one person gets something out of it, great. It helps me to articulate my thoughts and feelings. But with regard to what is right and wrong, when I was talking about like the animal kingdom, from a human perspective, we might see a lion hunting down a deer, and it would look terrible. And a friend of mine would watch it, and she's like, I can't watch it. It's terrible. And of course, is it? No, that animal's acting on pure instinct. But of course, from our perspective, it looks terrible, doesn't it? Like, this poor little cute deer being ripped apart by the mean lion. So from our perspective, that might look evil, even, but of course it isn't, is it? So what is evil in this world? I mean, I don't want to go into sort of philosophy about this, but I don't see evil as being a tangible thing. In other words, I believe good is a real tangible thing. I believe it is our true nature, because when we learn to be calm and at peace and quiet the mind, you will know what is good and bad. Well, good and bad, I try not to say that because it's a perspective. It doesn't really... You will know what the right thing is to do. You will know what the highest action for you to take is. When you are calm and at peace. So that's who you are, who we are as human beings, and all animals, all living things. We have all made of the same stuff, and that true identity that we are is love. It's joy and love. There isn't any evil part of ourselves. There isn't people that are born inherently evil. There are certain people, and in some of the... What we're trying to do here, what you got to remember is, I'm trying to articulate into words something which is very difficult, because sort of trying to explain the nature of some of the universe, which is impossible through words. So I'm doing the best I can. It's just an approximation. You're never going to get to the ultimate truth through words. You've always got to remember that. It just points to it. But I don't see evil as being a real thing. I see good as being part of who we are. I see evil as... When I read some of the books, the Conversation with God series, book 3, I think it is. If anybody has not read the Conversation with God series by Neale Donald Walsch, please, but books 1 to 3 are brilliant. I honestly, you need to read them. If you're listening to this, you'd be doing yourself a disservice if you didn't. And basically what it says is, there are people in the world that choose, souls that choose to come to the earth to fulfill a purpose and choose to be bad. In other words, bad people can serve a useful purpose. If you think about it, everything is connected, isn't it? The whole world couldn't function correctly without... Bad times inspire growth from a personal perspective and a collective perspective. So the books that I've read, the Conversation with God, says that there are certain souls that come to the earth to fulfill a purpose and be evil, to fill that role, which is a necessary role. For instance, look at evil dictators that have been and then overthrown, and then after that there's great prosperity that follows. It's like, you know, the beautiful rising of the sun after a terrible storm, and you see the flowers growing again. It's the same thing. It's all, you know, good versus bad and the polarities, if you want to say that. But I know there's someone that I've known that I find to be, you know, one of the most bad people, if you want to say that. Someone that I get a really... When I'm around him... She's not been there because he's been locked up now. But when I was around this person, I don't know how to explain it, but something told me... It was like an alert when I was near him. Stay away from this person, he's not right, you know. But yeah, I know he's a human being. So what is it that makes that person bad? I believe it's when you lose touch with who you truly are. When you do that, you're operating only on the level of the mind. And when you operate only on the level of the mind, you will, no matter what your intentions are, even if your intentions are good, you will create suffering. I have a problem with some people in this world who consider themselves or may be seen as good do-gooders. I see it in my professional life. They have a big ego but think that they are doing good when they are not. It all... an evil dictator is as dangerous, or let me put it the other way around. A naive do-gooder is as dangerous potentially as an evil dictator. It's the same. It's two sides of the same coin. You're operating on the level of the mind and thinking, I know what's good, I'm going to do that. What's the difference between that and an evil dictator? When you don't have access to wisdom, which is contained within you, within everybody, when you lose touch with that, I think that's when you become bad. Now, there are certain people, of course, you can't condemn them or judge them because they are on a path and they are on a certain level on that path. It's very difficult to do when they're interfering with somebody's life. But if you think about it from the perspective of that person, they're thinking, right, I need to do good because I want to make the world a better place. But really, most people like that are doing it because they have a concept in their mind of me, the good person. Now, thanks to Terry Moore for the picture here. But if you look at the picture on the screen, it says you do not become good by trying to be good, but by finding the goodness that is already within you and allowing that goodness to emerge. And that couldn't be more apparent than what we're talking about here. It's so when you, I think my experience is when you come across somebody like the person I'm talking about that I just get a bad vibe from. Someone said you feel their aura and it doesn't match. That may be true. I don't really understand all that fully, chakras and auras and all that. It doesn't. It sounds very interesting, but I don't really understand any of that. If someone would like to enlighten me, that's great. But I just think that when you lose touch with who you truly are, that's when you become bad. It doesn't mean that you are inherently bad, because you've lost touch with who you are. So from one perspective, you cannot be held responsible. And from another perspective, you will be accountable for it, because it couldn't be any other way. Jesus' words on the cross, or what is a translation, is forgive them for they know not what they do. And I love that, because what that means is you cannot act beyond your level, on the level of consciousness than what you are. If you could, you wouldn't do what you were doing. In other words, the way you're operating in life, it just wouldn't work. You wouldn't, if you truly knew what you were doing, you knew the suffering you was causing for yourself and other people, you wouldn't do it. And that's what that statement means. They know not what they do. People, it's about your consciousness growing. And to be fair, we're in a world that doesn't teach people to live in the right way. The teachings of religion have been misinterpreted so much that they've kind of lost most of the meanings. But I believe people are getting a bit more wise to it now. I do believe there's hope. So, and this is what I mean when I say, well, good versus evil and evil. It's not the thing that we think it is. It's darkness. What is darkness? Darkness is nothing. It has it's nothing, no thing. Darkness has no, it's nothing. I don't know how else to to say. It's like, if you look at space, if you go into space, and what is there between the planets and the stars? Nothing. No thing. Of course, some scientist somewhere will tell you it's filled with some kind of magical substance, probably, but, you know, there's a different theory each week, isn't there? Dark matter and all that. But if you think about the space that is around you now, that has no oxygen, of course, is there, but that space which contains the oxygen is nothing. And in space, it's dark. It's just darkness, pure darkness. What is that darkness? It's nothing. What is it when light is there? Light fills the room or fills an area and is no longer dark. That darkness has disappeared by the light, but the light is actually got a tangible quality to it. There is something there. It could be a person making the area glow, and I mean metaphorically, obviously people don't glow, but you do inwards. So my interpretation of evil is that evil is the absence of good. When good is lost, or when you lose access to who you really are, that's the closest approximation of what evil is, in my opinion. People who have lost their way and been corrupted by the world in a way, because there's so much. There is a lot of. If you think about a young person, there's a lot of pressure on them these days to be successful, to have money, to look good, especially now. I feel really sorry for like a lot of young girls growing up because of the selfies and all that kind of thing. And if you think about a girl who might really want to succeed and she has to have all the best makeup and look good, and they're taking selfies of each other every 5 minutes, and you're posting pictures on Instagram and all that kind of stuff, it's crazy. And just on Facebook now, the amount of there's these filters, and I've seen it a few times. I won't go into it. I'll talk about it in another video. But there's profile pictures that can change your appearance to make you look better, and I really don't think it's healthy. So if you've got a person, a young girl, that could be corrupted by all this, and it could turn her into quite a selfish person, and to be unpleasant doesn't mean that she's evil inherently. It just means that the world has made her a certain way. If she's had a certain upbringing, or maybe she doesn't look as good as what some other people do. It's a ridiculously challenging world, but we don't realise in most cases what the most important thing is. The most important thing is your state of consciousness and your integrity. That's all that matters, ultimately. The world is just a game for you to play in. Now, of course, if I suffered a terrible tragedy, I might see this all different, because what would happen is emotions would get the better of me, and then I'd start to... Even my daily business at work, I see people that are run by their egos, that ambition is all that matters to them. There is nothing inherently wrong with ambition. There is nothing inherently wrong with anything. Ambition is good if it comes from the right place. If that ambition comes from a place of wanting to be better than somebody else, on wanting purely the money, or wanting to be bigger, or a fear, if it comes from a fear of not being good enough, that ambition will be tainted, and it will create suffering for everybody that's involved. If ambition comes from a place of you want to grow as a person, you want to challenge yourself, you want to play around, you want to have fun, that's you playing in the world of form, you're playing in the sandpit, that's fine. You know, there will be a certain joy within what you're doing, and that joy will spread even if it's making a business, if you're on the promotional ladder at work, whatever it may be. Even people who make YouTube videos, there's some brilliant YouTubers out there that have made affected people's life in a good way. On my other channel, I've had messages from people all over the world. Obviously, it's different to what I'm talking about now, but that's what spurred me on to make this channel. Because people message me from all over the world saying, your videos have helped me through a bad time because you've taught me certain things. And it's a brilliant thing to know that. Just to know that all you've been doing is just being yourself, and you've had a positive impact on people's lives. It's just a fantastic feeling. Even if one person has made some kind of difference, it's fantastic. But yeah, so good and evil. What is evil? Does it exist? Of course, you would look at some of the videos and the news stories and things and say, how could it not do? But really, it's just human unconsciousness manifesting itself. The world is an outward manifestation of the human mind. We all have a collective mind. We're all connected. We're all part of the same thing. And yeah, we all are part of the same entity, really. And it was a teacher that said recently they had in his inner realization that what's happening is with humanity, and I do trust this guy's teachings, eventually we will all be one supreme being, and that's what humanity is. All souls will meld together to create one being, and he sees that the way it's going. But at the moment, if you think about your own mind, this is what I try to do, and it's very difficult. I'll be going out shortly, reading a nice book at a local coffee shop, because I love to do that. Just sit there, read a nice spiritual book, and do a bit of people watching. But every now and again, someone will walk in that I think, oh, you're a bit of a jerk or whatever, and it's a challenge of mine to not view that person like that. And when I see somebody like that, I will say that is me as well, because no matter how obnoxious a person may be or how egotistical, there will be a part of them, they will be displaying things that I've done through my life and still do, even this day. You know, I sometimes go to the gym and see people posing, just stood there in the mirror, just looking at themselves like, because they think they're great. I've done that every now and again. Just look at, I look at a program, I look at the progress I've made and I go, that's pretty good. So, nothing someone can do, and I've done some bad things in this world. I've treated people poorly, and I've made some bad decisions. I don't blame myself for it because I didn't know any better. You can't. So when you see somebody, of course you might see somebody mowing down children or something like that, and you can't say that's me. But that person, the best way of looking at it, the person that does that, rather than make an identity out of that person, I would say that person's very ill. That person is psychologically damaged, and also they've lost contact with who they truly what they were meant to be. And from a universal perspective, we're never going to figure out why everything happens. We see one piece of the jigsaw, one small piece of the jigsaw, and the overall jigsaw would not make sense without that small piece. But of course, we just look at the small piece and on its own, it makes no sense whatsoever. So what I would say, guys, if you can take something away from this, is whenever you see somebody acting in a way that is difficult, I would say that is me. There goes me. Because there will be, no matter what it is that they're displaying, there will be something that you've done very similar, if not identical, to the way that they're behaving. Just different levels of it. I'm going to do a video soon as well about what I think the current state of humanity is and how I think we're growing and things like that. So anyway, guys, I'm going to leave it there. Please let me know what you think of the video. I hope you've enjoyed it. I know I have. But it would be good to hear from you. And I will speak to you soon. Goodbye.